I'm absolutely terrified by the fact that I'm on the screen all the time. I have nightmares about that.
Jeremy Irons is known for a series of memorable performances on stage, screen, and television. From his roles in such films as The French Lieutenant's Woman, The Mission, Swan in Love, and television's Brideshead Revisited, to his Tony Award-winning performance on Broadway in The Real Thing, Irons has always been an actor's actor. Now in the psychological drama Dead Ringers, he portrays two identical twin brothers in another unforgettable performance.
You haven't had any experience until I've had it too.
They are mistaken for each other. I mean, they both make love to the same woman without her knowing that they're two different men. So they obviously are very similar to look at. I wanted there to be a feeling, as you got to know them better, of difference without being able to put your finger on what the difference is. And we've done that. But basically, the difference between them is their energy levels, I think. And if you play that, it actually makes you different. So your face changes, your body changes, you stand in a different way, you speak in a different way slightly. And I hope that'll be enough.
Aside from the challenge of creating two distinct characterizations, Irons had to deal with a complex array of technical processes to make the illusion of twins a reality.
I was very worried by having whatever it is I do when I act crippled by the technical process of twinning. I mean, film is technical enough anyway. We did a little bit of work with the camera and the twinning process to find out that wasn't overburdensome. It needs considerable technique to keep your timings right. I mean, for the motion control camera, which is the effect created is great. And that is just technical, and you have to be very concentrated. Everybody has to be very concentrated.
His performance as the obsessive and self-destructive mantle twins in Dead Ringers brings Irons into a new territory of film work. Known primarily for his elegant roles in period films, he here shows a much darker contemporary side. It's a creative stretch he is happy to make.
Welcome home, kid.
And as far as playing to a different audience, I'm very pleased. I mean, that in a way is a plus for me on this. I want to, as an actor, try to start playing to different segments of the audience, the ones I've been playing to normally. I need something to slow everything down. One is always tight. You're always asked to do what you've just done. Movies are high-risk business, and people who work in movies, in the main, it's a generalization, but in the main, they tend to, if they have a mauve-colored character, they think, oh, let's have him because he plays mauve-colored character, because they've just seen it. So you will always be asked to do what you've just done, and I try constantly to sidestep that if I can. It's very difficult. I mean, I shall never be asked to play a 5-foot Appalachian coal miner, but there are other things for 6-foot Englishmen.
It will be a departure in the sense that it will be perceived as a so-called realistic drama, whereas my other films have tended to be categorized as horror or science fiction. And I think that's valuable because it would be a mistake for people to think of this film as a horror film. It just simply isn't. Well, I'm always interested in characters who are so obsessive and so inventive that it pushes them out of shape and pushes them slightly to the outer fringes of society, rather than dealing, let's say, with people who are on the outside because they don't have an education, or they're poor, or they're drunks, or whatever. I'm more interested in people who almost have willed themselves to be on the outer fringes of society, even though, as with our twins, who are very successful at the beginning of the film in medicine and so on, even though from the outside they might seem to be very well acclimatized to society, perhaps even better at it than most people, but their inside is this germ of something that's growing, a crystal that ultimately is going to twist things around. And I find that very intriguing, and I like to study it, and I think there are many, many more movies for me that will deal with that subject. When I tried to set this film up at various studios, I was surprised to find that people were intrigued by the idea of twins, but repelled by the idea of gynecology in general. And in fact, that more than once I had someone at a studio say, well, yeah, but do they have to be gynecologists? I mean, couldn't they be lawyers? And the answer was, if you think they could be lawyers, then you really don't understand this project. You really shouldn't be involved in it. It's not that I'm not interested in lawyers and I love gynecology. What it is that a huge part of the film has to do with the relationships between men and women and the particular strange approach to that subject matter that the twins take, that they should choose a profession which gives them a relationship to women that is very strictly regimented, in which everything is well defined and which everything is kept at a distance, is part of what's important in the movie. That their approach to sex should be, or sexuality even, should be clinical. Yeah, it's interesting what a taboo it is, because everybody's interested in it. Everybody has a gynecology story, male or female, their girlfriend, their wife, or the experience itself in women. And yet, it's very hard to find an actor who would play a gynecologist. You know, there's a whole macho sense of what acting should be amongst American actors, and they'd play killers and they'd play, you know, robbers and thieves, but they wouldn't want to play a gynecologist. Everyone, even people on the street, would say, gee, playing twins, that must be a great challenge for an actor. Surely any actor would want to play twins. In fact, I think that's the first reaction, and then the second one is terror on the part of the actor, being afraid that he will not be able to make them different enough, or that he will make them too different. If one of the twins is a psychotic, I think an actor could feel comfortable playing that, and he knows how to make them different. One is truly innocent, one is truly evil. To play two real people without those things to hide behind is difficult and scary. I think that's what attracted Jeremy to the subject matter. I think it's also was scary for him. Almost all twins movies are either broad comedies in which the twins are, let's say, exactly the same. That's like The Parent Trap. There's no different. Or they are thrillers in which one of the twins is a psychotic killer and the other one is innocent. And I've never actually seen a movie which featured twins as a main character, in which the twins were each real people, complex and subtle, and neither one being the embodiment of evil, you know, or not. And it was just that they were both real people, and that was what the script demanded. In fact, they do look different in the film, in the sense that, I mean, Jeremy, he's so good and so subtle. He actually holds his mouth differently when he speaks as Elliot, different from the way he does when he's Beverly. They actually do look different in the film, but it's all really acting and some very subtle makeup and hair things, very subtle. Jeremy's very inventive, and his mind is never still. He's always working. And so he did bring quite a bit to the roles. I mean, really a lot. He's not an actor who is just passive and just does what is asked of him. I mean, he puts a lot more into it than that. I was worried about thinking about the possible complications of making twins out of one actor. Yes, without that, the film would have been a very straightforward, dramatic movie. With that, almost every scene is a special effects scene in an invisible way. And even in a scene that is very horrific in my films, there's always an inventiveness, I hope, that it's not something that my audience would ever see in any other film. And so it's not just a matter of, you know, graphic violence or anything like that. It's inventive and suggestive and metaphorical when it's working right.
It's not an obvious thing to bring into a major market dramatic form a story that deals with identical twin gynecologists, particularly because this film deals with the relationship between the twins, as opposed to dealing with twins in the way that I had previously thought of twins, which is just as a neat curioso, oh, cute little girls who can be transposed one for the other and confuse all the adults, isn't that sweet? Or the good twin, bad twin variant, where one is all evil and the other is all good. Here we deal with two complex personalities who are genetically identical, but who each try to cope with life as an identical twin. He had some trepidation about playing against himself, which is something that he's never done before. So we arranged for a screen test. We flew him over from England. It was more him testing us and testing himself. And we did a test that worked out just brilliantly, and for all of us it just brought the project alive, and that which we had always believed in turned out to be concrete in some way for the first time. And of course we just knew we had to have him at that point. The fundamental story here has to do with two complex personalities that are identical twins, one of whom wants to break away from this system, this binary system that each of them is caught into. It's the idea of being born with another identical being who you are predestined to have with you your entire existence, and at the same time wanting to mate. It's almost twinning versus mating in this case that sets off the dramatic events that lead to the end. I play Victor, the accountant to the twins, who is going through the books and the financial situation with one of the twins when he's burst in on by the other in a fit of panic. And I'm somewhat surprised by the set of events. It was interesting actually playing the part, because I was in a twinning shot where Jeremy was playing both parts. And so I reacted to Jeremy as one character, and I reacted to Jeremy at a later time as another character. And at that point in the story, the two twins are very different. So that was an interesting thing. And of course, for about 2 weeks prior to my doing it, Jeremy teased me no end about what he was going to do to me on the set to make it difficult. But in the end, he was a total gentleman, and it was just a pleasure to do it.
I was quite taken by the possibilities of seeing a woman who thinks she's having an affair with one man. It turns out that she's having an affair with two identical men, and that struck me as a twist on the old triangle situation that we had never really seen before. Could bring some interesting changes on. I think it's exceptionally melodramatic to have the bad twin and the good twin, you know. I think with real-life twins that they are exceptionally like one another. And as in this film, I think there usually is one that's dominant. And I think that's fairly standard. But certainly not you know, one who's you know, certainly not a Jekyll and Hyde situation. And I think the notion here was to make a film about twins that was that accurately reflected the psychological reality of twinship. Well, one of the interesting things about this film is that David has mostly known, I suppose, for horror films. And this is really a more naturalistic sort of film. And I think in horror films, you can kind of say, oh, it's just a fairy tale. It's just a horror movie. It's like a cinematic roller coaster, and you get
afraid while you're there, but you can walk out of the theater and dismiss it. Whereas this is really deals with some of the horror of life, which I find, you know, people can deal less readily with and can't dismiss as a mere fairy tale. This film in particular is showing a whole new dimension of Jeremy Irons' talent when he's sort of playing the more active twin. I think he's a throwback to some of the great English cinema actors of the past. He's a bit like George Sanders when he's Elliot, you know, and a bit like Basil Rathbone when he's Beverly. You know, I think this movie is showing a new dimension to his talent, and a very exciting one. Unlike most people whose strangeness gets expressed in their life, his gets expressed in his art. I know, I hate to quote Flaubert on a movie set, but I think he said something that you have to be bourgeois, and this is a paraphrase, bourgeois and straighten your habits so you can be violent and original in your art. And I think that describes David pretty well. He has a, you know, very normal personal and family life, and all the, you know, kind of strangeness which is in us all. I think he can express in his work, which is, I think, a pretty good, almost therapeutic situation.